Welcome, wanderers, to Wanderlust Stories, where the world's most enchanting destinations meet tales that never truly end. My name is Wanderlust, and today I'm taking you beneath the surface, to a place where sunlight dies, silence reigns, and the earth remembers everything that's ever entered its depths. This is the story of our dive into Mexico's Dos Ojos Cenote, the day beauty turned against us. And the day one of us didn't come back. We were three friends: Marco, the instructor who lived for danger; Lina, a photographer chasing light in dark places; and me, the one who always looked for stories. We'd been travelling across the Yucatan, hopping from one cenote to another, drawn to these ancient portals that the Mayans once called the eyes of the earth. But Dos Ojos was different. Even the locals said so. They said it connected to something deeper, a cave so vast and untouched. Divers who ventured far enough could hear their own hearts beating in sync with the stone. We laughed it off, the way people always do when they don't understand what's waiting for them. The entrance was hidden beneath the jungle, a gaping wound in the earth surrounded by vines and roots. We had to kayak through an underground passage to reach it, paddling beneath limestone arches that dripped cold water down our backs. Our headlamps flickered off the cave walls, and the deeper we went, the less sound there was. No birds, no wind. Just the steady dip of paddles and our breaths echoing back at us. The water was impossibly clear, like liquid glass. Beneath us, the world fell away into infinite blue. When we reached the main chamber, shafts of sunlight pierced the ceiling and cut through the water in perfect beams, turning the cavern into a floating cathedral. Dust and air bubbles drifted like particles of gold. It was hauntingly beautiful. Lina raised her camera. "Feels like we shouldn't be here," she said, half smiling. Marco checked our gauges. "That's what makes it perfect." We dove. The descent was silent. Our bubbles rose in silver trails that vanished into the ceiling. The deeper we went, the darker it became, a layered darkness, heavy and absolute. We followed the guideline, a thin white rope leading through narrow corridors of stone, twisting like the spine of some ancient creature. Everything was suspended. Time. Thought. Sound. We drifted between columns that had taken millennia to form, stalactites and stalagmites joining like the ribs of a sleeping giant. My flashlight glided over carvings etched faintly into the walls, spirals, eyes, hands. I thought it was my imagination until I saw Lina's light stop on the same markings. She turned to me underwater, eyes wide behind her mask. She pointed. The carvings were moving. Slowly, subtly, the lines pulsing as though drawn by something still alive. I blinked hard, trying to steady my breathing. The movement stopped. The walls were still again. Marco motioned us onward. We followed. After 15 minutes, we reached what he called the Cathedral chamber, a vast, open cavern that seemed to breathe around us. Our lights barely touched the far walls. A thin mist of silt floated through the water, stirred by unseen currents. And then the current changed. At first it was gentle, a ripple across my arm, a drift of sand. Then it grew stronger. The silt thickened, spinning upward like smoke. Our lights turned the water to fog. Marco signaled to retreat, but the line we'd followed was gone, lost in the haze. We turned in circles, searching, but visibility dropped to almost nothing. I felt something brush against my shoulder, soft, deliberate. I turned, expecting Lina, but she was above me, frozen in place, her body rigid, her light aimed down. I followed her beam. Something was there. Below us. At first I thought it was a formation, a cluster of rock or coral. But then it shifted. A shape. Long, pale, almost human, but not. It hovered motionless, as if waiting. Marco moved closer, his hand out as if to test the current. The shape mirrored him. Every movement. Every breath. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and when they came back on, there were more. 3, 4, 5 of them. Figures suspended in the water, drifting closer with every heartbeat. Their faces were obscured by a faint shimmer, like reflections distorted by glass. But I swear I saw eyes. Lina panicked first. Her breathing quickened, bubbles escaping in frantic bursts. She tried to swim upward, but one of the figures moved faster. The water around her rippled, bending light in impossible ways, and her body convulsed, her limbs jerking like she'd been caught in invisible threads. I reached for her, but Marco grabbed my arm, shaking his head violently. His light turned downward and I saw it, the sediment below us rising like a storm. Something was stirring beneath the floor. And then the cavern groaned. It wasn't sound. It was vibration, deep and primal. The walls themselves trembled. Cracks splintered through the stone. The water turned black with silt and shadow. Marco shoved me toward the tunnel. I swam blind, lungs burning, hands scraping rock. The line, the blessed white line, brushed my fingers. I gripped it and pulled, kicking with everything I had. Behind me, I felt the current shift again, a force pulling backward, dragging. Something cold wrapped around my ankle. I kicked free, barely, and kept going until the darkness began to pale and light returned above. When I broke the surface, I screamed. The sound was swallowed by the cavern. Marco surfaced seconds later, gasping. But Lina never came up. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. The water stilled again. When the rescue divers came hours later, they found her camera wedged in a crevice 50 meters down. The footage showed flashes of movement, her own frantic breathing, and then, just before it cut off, a single frame of a face. Not hers. It was pale, smooth, eyes open, watching her through the water. To this day, I don't know what we saw. The locals said the Cenote was sacred, a passage between worlds. A place where the living could touch the underworld, but only once. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see that blue light and the faces in the dark. And every so often when I swim, I feel something brush against my leg. Gentle. Familiar. Like she never really left. So, my fellow wanderers, if you ever find yourself drawn to the cenotes of Mexico, if you crave the thrill of descent and the beauty of silence, remember this. Some places aren't meant to be explored. Some waters remember what they take. Until next time, this is Wanderlust, reminding you, the deeper the beauty, the darker the secret it hides.